So I've definitely been thinking about how the world is not logical. The universe is not logical, at least in the sense that there is randomness and chaos, and that the things that happen can often be accidents or can be arbitrary or ambiguous. And that's definitely an interesting thing to think about, because the flip side of this argument is the Enlightenment dream, as espoused by Enlightenment thinkers like Immanuel Kant and David Hume, but also inspired by new wave thinking about the Enlightenment, such as by Steven Pinker and rationalist thinkers in general. And I think it's interesting to think about because I don't know where I fit on this spectrum, but I would say that I definitely do think about illogic, or what could be referred to as illogical elements in our thought and in the world that we experience and in experience itself. And I think it's interesting because I don't always know what to do with this. I don't always know what to do with the idea that the things that I might try to impose onto the world to make it more logical might actually be limiting and may not even actually create order at all. And it really is an interesting argument, often attributed to the postmodernists, where it seems that our reality actually breaks down because we don't actually have a faculty of reason that we can rely on, and that in that sense, it is out of our control the way in which things are not actually ordered, but that they might actually be truly random, and that the more that we impose our logic on things, the more that we actually just make things worse, or at the very least, actually don't even necessarily change anything in the world. Now, I don't know how I fit on this whole train of thought, because on the one hand, I can see the utility in what I'm trying to do, which is imposing order by use of logic and reason and rationality on things. But it might be that there's another component where there's a little bit more to it, where maybe I actually like illogical thinking. Maybe I like the irrationality of our way of looking at the world or our way of being. And maybe the subjective sense of self is much more chaotic, like we might see in something like Heidegger or Deleuze. And this is a really interesting question, I think, because I don't know what you do with this reality. I really want there to be order, and I want there to be a system of just some kind of system that can be organized. But often some of the most interesting thought comes from the places where things are actually very much spontaneous and where they're not so much structured as they are simply organic. And I guess this is the tension for me, is that I can see both sides. Not to make it a dichotomy, though that could be another attempt at creating order where there is no order, but it might be a situation where I actually want to explore some of that illogical thinking, but find myself more and more constrained by the world in which we live in, trying to live in this efficient reality, in this efficient society, in this efficient bureaucracy or hierarchy, or whatever it is, and realizing that maybe there's a place for the illogic or the illogical. And the reason why I say this is because I recognize that there's a lot of elements to my thinking that I have probably very much forced conformity on, a lot that I've actually strained, and that is constrained, because I don't realize the ways in which my creativity and my outside the box thinking might actually be valuable. And so I would say that that's one of the things that I struggle with the most, is that I'm often placing constraints on my reasoning. And maybe there's a way in which I don't want to do that, because illogic seems to have a pejorative kind of connotation, that it's a negative term, because it means that it is not logical. It means that it's limiting in a lot of ways to any kind of order or organized system of thought. But maybe actually part of the beauty in life is being able to tap into the parts that are a little bit less straightforward. And I know that I struggle with this because I'm going to continue to put order on things. I'm going to continue to try to think of the Enlightenment dream and using scientific and philosophical and logical principles to be able to construct my understanding of the world. But maybe it is not so hyper-rational, and maybe I do a disservice to myself by not realizing the ways in which there is a lot more to it than maybe I've considered. I'm really not sure, because I know that even at the thought of thinking about my illogical way of looking at the world, so to speak, that there might be a sense in which I totally might miss out on the the whole beauty that comes from my own thinking, but that I often limit. And it's because I'm afraid to actually look at it in those terms. I'm afraid to look at it as being okay with a little bit of the more spontaneous thinking, the thinking that doesn't fit a structure. But then I guess I stumble and struggle in that way because I feel like you need structure to be able to make sense of anything. And so in that way, it becomes kind of this confusing circular argument because you can't figure out what you should actually do. And so I just wanted to communicate that this way of looking at logic, I think, can be constraining, but also realizing why we impose that. And it might be that that's why there's so many different ways of looking at it, because it seems to me that we have this impulse within ourselves to create order in a universe where there is no order by appealing to laws of physics, or by thinking about things in terms of some kind of structure, some kind of internal structure as some kind of actual law. And I think that we forget that we probably are definitely very primal animal beings, and that we have this intense side to ourselves that we probably don't explore. And I'm not even saying that you have to explore the illogical parts in a reckless way. The idea is more to just be aware of it, just recognize that it's there. And that's definitely what I want to do. I'm Phoenix. I hope you enjoyed this talk. These are just some of my thoughts that I've kind of been thinking about lately and trying to put it together, not always sure what to do with them. I love making these spontaneous videos. I love being able to be creative. I love being able to try new things. I hope that you'll check out my books, and I also hope that you'll check out my other videos on my channel. And yeah, I appreciate it. I'm Phoenix. Thank you for watching, and I will see you around. I will see you next time.